in this slide, we want to talk about that from Mr. Setya explanation. There are some characteristics of big data. In this, we just three characteristics. There are velocity, volume, and variety. And from based on UNES, there are big data classification. So, uh, if we remember what Mr. Setash said, that there are exhaust data, sensing data, and digital content. So based on UNES, there are social network. So social network is what data there is, what same with digital content, yes, right. And the second is traditional business system is same with S-house data, and the last is Internet of Things. It's same with sensing data. So there are many data now in the digital era. There are so many data. It is not just structured but also unstructured data. So big data is a new source that is used to support official statistic, but from what we expect is big data can substitute the what we already done, like conventional survey or census. And so in the next we just have to collect data by machine to machine mechanism. So because it has a characteristic like variety and velocity, so we must consider that the huge amount of potential data to be explored. So might prefer to collect as much data as possible without carefully consider the actual output they need. So more data does not mean more insight if we don't know how to process and analyze it. So, however, it will be wise to perform a preliminary literature study and assessment to obtain clear objective for any data analysis based on user need and not merely driven by data availability. So, maybe in external there are so many data, but we must consider what actually we want to produce from the data. So this in this picture we can see there are business process, and the detail of a specific activity in each phase is set here. And the next in the next slide we will talk about combine the framework that already mentioned by Mr. Ade. There are enterprise architecture and the KSBPM and JSIM itself. So this is the framework that we try to build to explain how big data utilization in a systematic way, because in some reference, for example, from UN Stat, they state that data source, big data as a data source is not much different from the other data source. So we must have to ensure the quality and how is the coverage of the data, because we aim to make big data for official statistic, right? So we must carefully to conduct each phase of in big data utilization. So for example, in specifying it, we must consider about what is our analytical objective, and we must check the data availability, because when the data is free, but we don't know about the continuity of the data. So maybe we can get the data for 2 months, but the next month we can get the data again, because the data provider is not provide the data, and we can make the data provider to meet our requirement, because we just crawling the data, but we don't have communication with data provider. So in this case, in specifying it, data partnership is very important to conduct big data utilization. So the other phase must be carefully conduct is when we collect the data, because in specifying it, we have assumption that we already know what data will be collected, and we must know how to accessing the data. Of course, if we have the MOU with the data provider, it will be more easily for us to get the data. Meanwhile, if we just crawling freely the data from the website, we have a risk about the continuity of the data. So in based on EA, previously mentioned by Mr. Ade, there are five main layers. They are business, data, application, and technology. In this framework, we try to place the layer in this picture. For business process, we adopt the SBFA. For the data, for the flow of data and metadata, we use the JSIM. So in this, just a brief picture of what is input or output from each page, but the detail of data layer, it will be more than this. There are several attributes that must be filled to ensure that the metadata is complete. And the application is support the data flow, and the feature that it is needed for business process running well. And the technology itself, it's related with the hardware, and the hardware that will support the application. So when we have application for support the business process, we must consider about what is the hardware requirement. So what application that we already have will be running well. And the last is role, because in this sharing session we will learn about what is the role of data engineer, what is the role of data scientist. Actually, there are many roles that we can make, not limit to data scientist and data engineer, but maybe we can add the role of data partnership, because it will help us to ensure the communication with the data provider. And we maybe for database, we must add a database administrator, so it can ensure the security of our storage, and database administrator will monitor the performance of database, because we talk about data, so database is one of main component in this flow. So, and there are other components that overarching. There are standard, method, quality, security, and governance, because actually in previous diagram we talk about data lake. We already collect much data from internal and external. We must ensure the metadata, so we must state that in the governance document, so it can be referred for each of role in our big data ecosystem, like that. So for explanation of statistical business process for big data, maybe you'll hear that you can read more about how the case of implementation the enterprise architecture for big data in our paper. It already display in DR slide, so you can read in there for detailed explanation.